We are standing at a historic crossroads. For far too long, Nigeria has been a nation of unrealized potential, a country rich in resources, talent, and spirit, yet weighed down by systemic corruption, poor leadership, and broken institutions. But make no mistake, the time is now. It's no longer just the future, we are the present. We must start stepping into boardrooms, ballot boxes, and legislative chambers with a clear message. Business as usual is no longer acceptable. Today, we begin a critical conversation about the state of governance in Nigeria, an honest, data-driven look at where we are, where we're faltered, and how we rise. From the streets of Lagos to the creeks of the Niger Delta, from the classrooms of Kano to the farms of Benue, governance must deliver real impact. This is not just a political issue, it's a generational mission. So let's unpack the truth, challenge the status quo, and chart a path to a Nigeria that works for everyone. And this is a special welcome to Politics Uncensored, where we tackle the tough topics, challenge the status quo, and uncover the hidden narratives that shape our world. Our goal is to provide a platform for open and honest discussions where experts and everyday citizens can share their perspectives and insights. It is your favorite show, and we have two expert guests who will be joining us soon. And of course, I'm your host, Okikiola Taiwo Jalukmo, a proud member of a new generation of leaders, young, bold, and unapologetically committed to redefining the future of governance in this great nation. Every episode is all about you, so be a part of the conversation every single day and add your voice to these discussions. Head on to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV right now. Hit that subscribe button, like, share, and invite your friends and family to join the show live. Our phone lines are also open to you. Please call us on 070-2500-7749 and 070-1424-2420. Let's hear what you have to say. We'll go on a break right now. We'll return with our guests and take you through our top stories in the political space making headlines. Please. Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Uncensored, and today we'll be analyzing the state of governance in Nigeria. In a nation bustling with talent, resilience, and potential, why are we still held back by insecurity, institutional failure, and mistrust in leadership? What must change, not only at the top, but at every level of government and citizenship, to build a truly perfect Nigeria, a truly working Nigeria? How we will navigate these challenges. And to help us navigate this important conversation, I'm honored to be joined by two men who have not only served, but have also continued to lead with conviction and integrity. First, a man whose service to Nigeria spans both military and civic platforms. He is the National Secretary of the Retired Members of Nigeria Armed Forces, a voice of discipline, duty, and deep national insight. We have Ambassador Dr. Oeme Roy. I can't pronounce the surname properly, so I'm just going to skip that. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. And also joining us as well is a distinguished intellectual and a lawyer. Barrister Morris, is he here?
Morris Ebam is here. Hi. I'm Barika de Salah to you.
Barika de Salah to you. Welcome. So today, we're asking the big questions, and more importantly, we're seeking bold answers. This show is about asking the questions and also giving solutions to the issues that face Nigeria. And politics is such, of us. I would also like to hear, given the political news that we have from some Nigerian newspaper, I also like to hear some of your insights, and I'm going to be reading some of the things that we have. And the first one is not so much of top stories, really. The EFCC boss is urging Muslims to embrace integrity and fight corruption. And on another news, we have fraud reports rise to 18% in top travel destinations. And I would like to ask Ambassador what you think about that.
What I think about the EFCC boss wishing Muslims happy Salah celebrations. So far, so good for the Salah celebrations because I will be looking at security angles. Trust me, I don't permeate into issues that will not help our security architecture and parameters. Now,
Absolutely.
for the Salah celebration, the one of the Muslim imams was sent back from the Hajj, and not by Nigeria. He left Nigeria, arrived there, and he was sent back. So if that connotes a lot,
Yes.
because I was very happy because the Islam that I know does not embrace terrorism, but the adulterated version which the ISIS propagates is what embraces terrorism. So for him to be sent back means that they have drawn the line against those that are enhancing terrorism. Now, when he came back to Nigeria, what happened? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we need to ask, as I said, we're asking the real questions and giving bold answers. So when he came back to Nigeria, what happened? And I would love our audiences to also talk about that. But I would like Barrister Morris to talk about the issue of fraud, saying that it has risen to 18% in, top travel destinations. And I'm also wondering why. I don't know if Barrister Morris can give an insight to what his own viewpoint about this issue is. Okay, so we're there. But yes, that's basically all we have on today's political news on the newspaper, on the Nigerian newspaper. As I said, we're talking about how the state of governance in Nigeria. And governance is a complex tapestry woven with significant potential and persistent challenges. Despite being a democratic federation with vast natural and human resources, Nigeria continues to grapple with systemic issues, including corruption, insecurity, poor infrastructure, and weak institutional capacity. While successive governments have introduced reforms aimed at improving public service delivery and economic management, the pace of transformation, remains very slow, and the impact on even across the country's 6 geopolitical zones. Nigeria practices a federal presidential system with a bicameral legislature, yet power remains heavily centralized in Abuja. And in the Democracy Index in 2024 by the Economics Intelligence Unit, Nigeria ranks 107th out of 167 countries, categorized as a hybrid regime. The INEC has also faced allegations of electoral malpractice, although technology like the Beaver system has improved some transparency. Corruption and issues still exist. Nigeria still ranks 145 out of 180 countries, scoring 24 over 100, reflecting widespread public sector corruption. Billions are lost yearly to corruption in procurement, oil revenue, mismanagement, and embezzlement. And the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative has estimated that over $40 billion was lost in the oil and gas sector due to mismanagement between 1999 and 2020. And that is such a huge amount of money. Anti-corruption bodies like the EFCC and the ICPC have also made high-profile arrests, but are often accused with selective prosecution. We've seen over the months where they have picked up certain people that we feel that they only picked them up because a certain administration were not comfortable with them anymore. We've also had issues with the security and the rule of law of Nigeria, as civilians were reportedly killed or abducted due to violent confliction, terrorism, and banditry. And the Global Peace Index of 2024 still ranked Nigeria 146 out of 163 countries, making it one of the least peaceful countries globally. It was a very funny one I also saw some months back, which I mentioned to some of my colleagues, and I said that when they were talking about how friendly or how happy Nigeria was, I think they rated Nigeria 107th out of 153 countries as the least happy, and this was against the happy state in that sense in 2006 till now. So it's such a sad thing that even the rule of law, is undermined by political influence in judicial processes, slow trials, and prison congestion, with over 70% of inmates awaiting trial. I run an NGO, and I see, every day seeing people who are being convicted but then do not get trials, or they keep awaiting trial over and over and over again. Even our GDP has gone down the drain, where the economic governance of Nigeria's GDP stood at approximately $489 billion in 2024, according to World Bank. But the real GDP growth rate is just 2.9%, which is below the population growth of Nigeria. Inflation, especially, is persistently high, reaching 33.2% in early 2025, with food inflation above 40%. Unemployment rate is estimated at 5.0% using a revised methodology, though youth unemployment, underemployment rate far higher in reality. But this seems so far-fetched. But the reality of Nigerians, especially when the removal of subsidy happened, is like these did not only take out subsidy but worsen the cost of living crisis in Nigeria. But basically, this conversation is not going to be had by me alone. That's why we have expert guests who's going to be discussing some of these issues, with me. Our phone lines are still open to you. You can still call us on 070-2500-7749 and 070-1424-20. Do I have Ambassador here?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Wonderful. So as someone who has served in the armed forces and now advocates for retired officers, how would you assess the relationship between, the national security and effective governance in Nigeria today?
Thank you very much. Let me first appreciate the Nigerian media, because without the Nigerian media, the veteran community would not have been able to communicate the abandonment that they currently experience from the government. And this abandonment is due to the lackadaisical attitude that people in government offices, not only politicians, I'm talking about the ministries now and the ministers and the parastatals that are supposed to handle day-to-day activities to show seamless delivery of governance to the people. Now, if you look at the insecurity in Nigeria, there are two ways to look at the insecurity. Number one, you look at the insecurity in Nigeria to Nigerians. Then you will now look at the insecurity in Nigeria to foreigners. I did this separation sometime in an international media, and people were kind of saying, what kind of angle are you coming from? They were surprised. I want to assure you that insecurity in Nigeria is almost 100% to Nigerians. What we usually hear is that foreigners were arrested for fraud, foreigners were arrested for illegal mining, foreigners were arrested for abuse of the naira or whatever. How many times have we heard that foreigners were kidnapped, foreigners were killed, foreigners were robbed in their houses? You get it? Yes. So we need to begin to separate the insecurity effects on Nigerians, innocent Nigerians that are not up to par among the elites. So that is where we should begin to look at.
Thank you very much. You've rightly mentioned that insecurity. Well, I didn't even know about that perspective, but then looking deeper, you see that all the things that you have said are very correct, and those are bold claims. I've always mentioned how our borders are very porous and then accepts whomever, people come in, and go out. And looking at how we can now start creating structural reforms for example, for our security, for our borders, what structural reforms do you think that are most urgently needed, to strengthen Nigeria's security architecture and, restore public trust in the system? Public trust in the sense that just this morning I was talking about how you have to be watchful, even beyond kidnapping and banditry. You now see pickpocketing, on surprising stabs just because you did not maybe give a stipend to certain groups or just roaming on the road. So how do we now bring in structural reforms and also, strengthen Nigeria's security architecture in that sense?
It's going to be difficult. Let me tell you, the first weapon that a country has against corruption, criminality, and insecurity is the judiciary. That is the first line of deterrence for people that go into corruption, criminality, and insecurity. Now, if you want to use the judiciary to also curb and mitigate excessive actions of government personnel, now you can see what the judiciary is doing with the President of America, Donald Trump.
Yes.
They are also putting hedges and wedges against excessive veto power and ability to go singular. Now, if you look at Nigeria for an example, we began to use the judiciary to enhance political rigmarole. We began to use the judiciary to oppress political opponents and mar political results. Now, since we got to that level, many of the judges that get to apex courts like High Court, Supreme Court, already immediately got aligned with the mindset of governance, of negating the effectiveness of the judiciary. So if no criminal is penalized, why will crime not continue? If every criminal has a godfather in government, why will crime not continue?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We have Professor Chris here, who is the convener of Country First Movement, and I would like to know if he's here with us right now. Good morning, Professor Chris. Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course, I can hear you clearly, sir.
Okay.
Yes, so let me go straight to asking you the questions. You have long championed the ideas of value-based leadership. So what do you think, or what do you believe is fundamentally missing in the current governance framework that prevents true transformation in Nigeria?
No, I think that first, let me say good afternoon to our listeners and good afternoon to Ambassador. It is my pleasure to be on with you. Let me say quickly that very often when I'm confronted with this kind of very brilliant question, I say to people that the leadership deficit that we have in this country is born out of three fundamental issues. The first is what I call spiritual poverty. We're too religious, but yet very ungodly. There is a soul vacuum. People believe that Naira and Kobo solves every problem. They forget the injunction of the Holy Book that a good name is better than silver and gold. So there is a spiritual vacuum. Then the second is that we have a society that adulates, worships materialism. And so when people are in office and they're not corrupt, corruptive, or corruptible, They return back home and people say, oh, you're a failure because you didn't steal public monies. That is a societal deficit. And then the most painful of it all is the fact that we have people I'd rather call rulers who are consumed by waste, wanderlust, and profligacy. So over the years, because we're unwilling to call a spirit by its name, because the people are almost very easily convinced, maybe on ethnic grounds or religious grounds, on grounds that almost certainly benumbs logic, and mark my choice of words, benumbs logic, when I've decided to support a candidate or a president, not because he's performing, but because perhaps he's of the same ethnic extraction, or perhaps because he's of the same religious extraction. And they forget that we all go to the same market. If you're Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, what have you, we all go to the same market. And hunger is indiscriminate of religion, hunger is indiscriminate of ethnicity. And if you allow me delve in a bit to what my brother has just said about matters of security, they forget that insecurity is indiscriminate of ethnicity, of religion, and what have you. So I think that what we must begin to do as a people is to begin to call a spade by its name, call out, name and shame leaders when they fail to fulfill on the promises they made to the people whilst they were campaigning. It is fundamentally important that as a people, we must walk that path. We must begin to, in other civilized climes, they call it name and shame. We must begin to, if you're not doing well, if you made promises to the people and you're not living up to the promises you made, the people must be able to call you by the right name, a failure. People must be able to say he's corrupt. And it shouldn't be from ethnic, religious, or tribal cocoonery. It should be about what truth dictates. I believe that if we learn to, as a people, speak truth to the power, if we learn as a people to put before us the primacy of lives and properties, if we learn as a people to commit ourselves to the collective well-being, the collective good of the nation, then our challenge for a republic where leadership is responsible and responsive to the people will be a great success. As I talk to you, you can see that there's a dip in the shade. I don't know whether you can see me clearly anymore, but
I can.
You wonder why, and that's because power outage has just come. That's because after 65 years of independence, in a few months now, it'll be 65 years of independence, we're still unable to solve the energy challenges. We're still unable to address fundamental issues of state. These are the challenges that confront us as a nation, and we must begin as a people. I'll give you an instance, and I hope you don't laugh about this. Whilst the president was campaigning about 2-3 years ago, he did say that if after 4 years he fails to solve the energy challenge, people shouldn't vote for him. As you and I talk, nothing has been done effectively to improve the energy situation. And what do we have? Parties and individuals are endorsing his candidacy.
And the light
what
is
do
back
we
on.
have? You have defections from one party. Yes, you have defections from party A to party B and vice versa. So the commitment to making real the promises of democracy is thin. The commitment to making real the promises of responsible and responsive leadership is narrow. The commitment to making our nation work is distant. And I think that I would salute the media for what you people are doing. A proactive media will help locate our country on the path to progress. And I hope consistently the media across board continues to do this, engage with the people, have the people engage leadership, and allow for what I call, I've always said, this is my quotable quote, that critical mass, critical opposition is the street that leads to the beloved community that we all expect. And so we must consistently demand that leadership becomes responsible and responsive to the people.
Thank you very much, Professor Chris. I think that one thing that I was really looking for was what role that young people play in this. And I know that you spoke generally in that sense, and you also mentioned the government. But young people are often told they're the leaders of tomorrow. I personally I've heard the leaders of tomorrow, the leaders of tomorrow. As someone who mentors and mobilizes the youth, what would you say are the key ingredients in that sense for preparing, us to lead today, rather than always pushing it? It's almost saying that tomorrow never comes, and we have today right here to do something that changes. So what would you say are the key ingredients for preparing us for today?
Let me say quickly, and this is very important, that that cliche, I started my political life from the university. That cliche, the young as the leaders of tomorrow, has almost been made seemingly untrue by a never say die political class. You see people at 80, they still want to run. You see people who are youth leaders of political parties in their 50s and their 60s, and you ask yourself, what kind of people are we? Now, I want to say clearly that what enamors me about the present generation of young people, the people we call the Gen Z generation, is the fact that they are not allowing the deceit of a political class to blindfold them about the realities and the urgency of now. It's very encouraging. What we did, my first detention experience as a student was when I was 18 years old. Then I had several dints and stints with the police and the DSS in my very early 20s when we were part of the effort to actualize the June 12th. We stood with Abiola, we were in the trenches. So many of us were locked up, detained every so often. But what is important as I talk to you is the fact that the young people are rising up. About 3 years ago, precisely in 2020, you saw the NSAS protestation, where the young people taught the world an example in progressive struggle. Remember that when Americans, just about that period, Americans were protesting about the murder of George Floyd. And there was violent protestation in several of the states. But here, for about almost 3 weeks, the Nigerian people, young people, stood up peacefully until they were provoked by agents of states. Mind my choice of words, please. Provoked by agents of state. But as we go forward, what I have learned, and that's what I keep telling the young people, is that we can conduct our protestation. We can refuse to allow oppressive tendencies of state to continue, albeit peacefully. We can mobilize the people to say no, albeit peacefully. And we can also continue to demand responsible and responsive leadership through sit in and sit tight. And young people must understand, and this is what I tell them, that power is not served a la carte. You don't stay in your room and wait for the dish called power. You don't stay in your parlor and wait for the meal called a new Nigeria. You must work and fight for it. And so last year or so, they came up with the End Bad Governance protestation, and I saluted their efforts. But what is important is for us to understand that as we work towards 2027, our young people must refuse to allow the voter apathy that denominated the 2023 election. And they must rise up to pull through and push through a ballot-based revolution using their thumbs. I believe that if they say no to ill governance with the population of young people in the voter register, they can transform this country from the jangling discord of poverty disease, decay, and inanity to the amazing place of promise. If they organize rather than agonize, they can transform this country and make our country better. So I'm a passionate believer in the power of the young people to transform their country. And remember, it was Margaret Mead that said that those who think that a band of small people cannot transform their nation are wrong, because nothing is truer, nothing is more realistic than the fact that a committed band of young people can transform their world. So I think that this question of yours is very apt. I also think that our young people who are listening must understand that they cannot wait for the old to hand over power, since what we have is a gerontocracy that is unwilling to retire. And so what must they do? Instead of agonizing, the time for them to begin to organize, to take not only their destinies in their hands, but to take power is now. We must galvanize, work together, network, and effectively begin the path of redefining governance in this country, begin to walk the path of making leadership responsible to the people, and ultimately, when we do the needful, we shall have a new country on our hands.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm sure that the young people are listening, and even Ambassador has also given great insights. We need to take a break right now, and then when we return, we'll dive deeper into the state of governance in Nigeria and what should change. Please stay tuned.
Life is made up of moments, some that fill us with joy, others that test our strength. Welcome to Heartlines. This is our space to explore the highs and lows of human connection, the love, the heartbreak, and resilience that shapes our life. From relationships to friendships, parenting to partnerships, and so much more. Every week, we share stories and conversations that define us, navigating love, separations, the struggles of parenting, dealing with anxiety and managing the pressures and stress of life. Real conversations that bring us closer, helping us heal, grow, and connect. So join me Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. for Heartlines, the show where we connect hearts, have real conversations with real people, one story at a time.
Welcome back to the show. We're still talking about the state of governance in Nigeria. And of course, this is Politics Uncensored. I still have Ambassador and Professor Chris here with me. But I'll be starting again with Ambassador. If you had the opportunity to rewrite just one aspect of Nigeria's governance system today, you know, be it constitutional, institutional, or cultural, what would it be and why? I hope people are getting their pens, you know, and papers ready, because I'm sure that Ambassador is going to give us real insights at this minute.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, and much respect to my colleague in the studio virtually. Now, let me corroborate his last postulation, especially concerning the youths. 20 years ago, I started this notification that there is a difference between classification of youths. I think we used to say young people that are in the university, you may start to classify them as youths. That was those days. Right now, as I speak to you, majority of the people that were in the age bracket that should be in the university that you can classify as youths before, right now, 90% of them are not in the universities. 60% of them are in the universities, living with friends off campus and practicing Yahoo Yahoo. So as I speak to you, another 40% that are very brilliant, but cannot get anyone to pay their school fees or sponsor them in the university. So we have a large catchment of citizens that we are supposed to compute into the bracket of youth, but it's not possible. That's one. Two, there is currently a strategy by our political gurus. If you notice what is going on in Nigeria now, after EndSARS, it became obvious that the aggressive quotient that is possible to express its aggression in Nigeria are those that we should classify as youths. After EndSARS, we got a lot of people on social media that created their own blogs or channels and began to bombard the government, since viral TV stations will be locked down if they try it. What did the government do? Political strategy. Immediately, we immediately began to purchase the conscience of the youths by presenting their children. Because the youths will be scared among themselves to go to the high-profile politicians to collect money. So it was the area boys, the hooligans, the street urchins that they give the 2,000 urgent 2K, as Nigerians we say, for them to snatch and to kill. But it's getting to a level where intelligent youths are now challenging the government on platforms that the government cannot shut down by music and by content. What next? The government is now purchasing the conscience of these ones by their children. So the president is presenting his son to this catchment of youths. So the son is taking musicians, bloggers, all of those content people to the president to amend their conscience. The governors, Kaduna State governor, every other governor, they are presenting their sons. The ministers, the one in Abuja, Wike, is also presenting his son. So these children will interface with the intelligent ones you call youths right now and begin to constrain their patriotism and inability to react as we expect them to. So political strategy continues to handicap the judiciary, handicap the current quotient you are classifying as youths. From there, what next? That is the major question. One of the things I like to portray as an answer, I've said this many years ago, and I will beg my co-colleague in the studio to also look at it critically if we can talk later. Nigerians, from the concept of local governments, councillors, states, localities, from the regions of intellectuals like the NBA, the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the Medical Association, from the areas of associations, NGOs, we must begin to think intelligently. We must look at certain people that we can sponsor. While we are sponsoring them through school, we will immediately continue to manage their psyche so that we will remove the corrupt tendencies that is predominant in majority of Nigerians. If we take these ones out of the society, I have certain youths and young people that I am sponsoring right now as I speak to you. You know, if we take them out of the society and push these ones into the political picture and the architecture, you will be surprised that We are infusing neutrality, we are infusing integrity, and we are encouraging collaborative resistance against corruption. And that will help us. So every local government, every rich man in Nigeria, every association, NGO in Nigeria that feels that the society has been hijacked should look at those they can pick away from the crowd, sponsor them. You can sponsor them abroad also, and make sure they come back into the political setting with that reviewed mindset and impute neutrality, integrity, and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Professor will also like to contribute to this. Do I have the prof with me?
Well, I think that, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Very interestingly, I think that what my brother on the other side has been able to capture is the fact that not only is citizen action necessary and relevant, we must reduce our penchant for agonizing. Almost always we agonize. So we know when government is not doing well. We know when corruption is rife. We know when government has collapsed. And we unfortunately forget the role of citizens. And the biggest office in the land is the office of the Nigerian citizen. That's the biggest office because power derives, the power that the executive controls devolves from the people, you know. So I want to say clearly here that what we must begin to do as a people is to organize at different levels. He did suggest that people should identify candidates who have potentials, aspirants who have a conscience, who have credibility and integrity. But largely what is important here, you know, I remember that the Holy Book would say that if the foundation be faulty, what can the righteous do? If the foundation be faulty, and that suggests that if the summum bonum, the constitutional foundation, what drives society is faulty, then there's little we can do. Now, going forward, there's need for the electoral reforms. It is fundamentally important that going forward, Nigerians must be able to insist on new electoral regime. If you get the best of candidates and you don't have a credible umpire, they will fail. You know, that scripture that I quoted suggests that even the righteous, it says, what can the righteous do if the foundation is faulty? And there's so much about a dysfunctional foundation with our dear country, Nigeria. It comes from, first, the Constitution. The Constitution says that we, the people, Nigerians never met to accept a particular document as the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Absalam Abubakar and his team of lawyers gave us a Constitution in 1999. We're yet to holistically review it, and that is why you have what we call the most powerful presidency in the world. Our Constitution gives so much powers and latitude to the office of a president, such that he can use the instrumentality of state to coerce people to decamp, defect, and move from one party to the other without recourse to the provision of what we call the law now. And so there is indeed, I agree with my brother that the citizens must take responsibility. I agree that the young people must rise up and begin to network and move for the creation of a society that is responsible and responsive. But largely, we must rework our laws to allow for that which is proper and right. This is the only federalism in the world that runs like a unitary system. Not even in communist China do you have an all-powerful center like we do. The constituents in China have powers to make laws, policy administration that helps grow the communities and make them prosperous. That's why China is moving forward in droves, in leaps and bounds. But very unfortunately here, rather than rework our laws to allow for true fiscal federalism, to allow for devolution of power, to allow for resource control, what we have are politicians whose philosophy is me, myself, and I. So they must bend the law to suit their egocentric predilections. They must bend the law to suit their idiosyncrasies. They must bend the law to suit their individual aspirations. But what is it all bad tales? We did agree, the other guest and I, that the young people did wonderful with the NSAS protestation. They also did wonderful with the End Bad Governance protestation. But beyond that, all those who truly love our country must begin to organize.
I think that we've lost the professor there. I don't know if Ambassador wants to contribute to that. I think he has rightly mentioned that if he had the opportunity, maybe not outrightly answering the question, but he has said if he has the opportunity to rewrite or change one aspect of the Nigerian governance system, it will be the electoral reform. And also, he has also rightly mentioned the influence of the NSAS, young people's influence during the NSAS protest and also the End Bad Governance protest. I believe that Ambassador too has also mentioned changing institutional norms, bringing people who have gone abroad, become neutral, to come back and also influence how political system should look like. What moving on from that, do you believe Nigeria's current political leadership understands the urgency of the moment? Like, are they aware that this is what should be happening? If not, what should they be doing differently right now? I would love to start with Ambassador.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, I'm traumatized when I talk about Nigerian system, okay? Because way back, I was in the armed forces, I was in the military, I was in the special forces. I know how many times we talk about patriotism. I know how many times military personnel, not even now, those days when we were taking 3,000 naira as salary, I know how many times there are opportunities to compromise, and we will stand our ground and say no. Okay, so if we are looking at Nigeria of today, I want to give you this assurance. Write it anywhere. People can castigate me the way they like. It is their data. They are free to use it as they like. We will have another 30 years. Another 30 years. And we are veering towards the direction of other African countries that their presidents will be serving life tenure. That is the direction we are going to, where a president will be serving life tenure and hand over to his children or stooges. You see, Nigeria currently is running closely to a one-party state. Everybody is decamping to the ruling party, especially those that feel that they have one thing or the other to hide. You know, so they are used to trade in their bad culture, their bad governance activities that have been discovered, and they come in to say, I am decamping. Why will you decamp when you are still serving under the flag of another party by voters' trust from another party? You know, so let's move ahead. Let's look at the situation that bedevils all of the opportunity for us to have a constitutional review, like my friend have said. You know, all of those things will end up in the courts. And in the courts, you will have a sitting judge that will accept a very frame of frail contention in what is supposed to be the norm, what is supposed to be globally accepted. A judge will sit down, a Nigerian citizen entrusted with the wig will sit down, collect monies from behind, and distort that whole process. And you will see that those that want to impute areas and angles that will favor the way to bastardize governance will succeed. And those that are genuinely patriotic will either be in prison or be on the roadside. So we don't have a process right now that will sincerely accept a constitutional review and put in the best. Ordinary election in associations. Look at the last NBA election. Lawyers were throwing chairs and fist cups in an association election. Nigerian Bar Association is on the news. You can Google it. Go and look at secondary schools, primary schools, alumni bodies, election for ESCO. People are being bribed. People are brought into the WhatsApp group to vote that are not even from the school. You know, so I look at these things and I just say, wow, we have years and years and years to count before we can find solutions to all of this.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. That's a very profound wrap-up. I don't know if you still have Professor Chris here. We have about 1 minute to take your insights. Professor, do I have you here? Okay, I guess network is still doing justice, but then it's quite sad how much we have discussed issues, and one thing has been certain so far is that the state of governance in Nigeria requires or needs urgent attention to its electoral reform. I guess we have Professor Chris back here.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Can you hear me?
Yes, so please, in 1 minute, give us a wrapping shot.
I see the cup as half full, not as half empty. I believe that the universe is in a state of constant flux, and our God is with us in the effort to fix our country. So I don't think it's such a bad tale. But what we must do as a people is, rather than agonize, we must learn to organize for the redemption of our country. Can we salvage this country? Yes, we can. How may we do that? Our people must begin to organize and confront leadership, albeit peacefully. We must consistently demand that leadership becomes responsible and responsive to the people. Unions, organizations, media houses, associations like the NBA that my brothers talked about, which is my side of the divide. I'm a lawyer by training. Nigerian Medical Association, the labor organizations and all that. We must galvanize, we must work together, we must coalesce and learn to say never, ever again. Because almost always the society must appreciate the fact that the power of the people is stronger than the power of those in power.
So I'm going to take it that the power of the people is stronger than of those in power. Thank you very much, Professor Chris, and of course, Ambassador Roy, for joining this conversation. It was amazing to have you here, and I hope the young people and even the audience at large can take a thing or two from some of the things that you have said and take, something, taking it back to their individual constituencies and communities, knowing that change literally starts with them. And honestly, my own unfiltered opinion is going to be that the state of governance in Nigeria, reflects a nation at a crossroad. And Nigeria is so rich in potential, but is so hampered by entrenched structural problems. Like our guests have mentioned, electoral reform issues, we've had corruption and everything put together. Well, while there are efforts that can improve transparency from people like Ambassador and Prof doing their own bits in their own space, economic stability and service delivery is still something that we keep fighting for, and I hope that going forward Nigeria can have meaningful progress that requires stronger institutions and inclusive of policy making and an unwavering commitment to justice and equity. Our guest also mentioned how judicial system has been tampered with. So I hope that going forward we can have a strong commitment towards justice and equity. Without this, I don't think that the promise of the democratic dividends will continue to elude many Nigerians. And before I go, please do ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow us on all our social media handles. And remember to like, share, and comment. This show is all about you. And this is a successful first week of the show. And I'll see you again next week with another amazing episode. Stay blessed. Bye.